Hi, I'm Joe Gertis, and this is Coffee in the Capitol. Today, our guest is Representative Mike Carroll, representing the 118th Legislative District and Democratic Chair of the House Transportation Committee. Mr. Chairman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Let's start off with your view on local governments as partners in our comprehensive transportation system here in Pennsylvania.
I'm always impressed by the dedication of so many of our township supervisors. And
Sure.
I know, having gone to the convention and meeting with so many of them are long serving. I have a township supervisor in Lackawanna County that served for over 40 years. And when it comes to transportation, Joe, nearly everybody in our Commonwealth will travel on a local road before they get to a state road.
Yeah.
That last mile and first mile mantra that you hear from time to time. And it's very important for, the safety of our motoring public and the ability to move goods and services, that last mile and first mile are as good as they can be to make sure that people have safe movement to get to our state network. And then on our state network, beside the interstates that everybody's familiar with, or the larger roads, we have quite the sophisticated network of SRs, state roads, that township folks would be quite familiar with. And it's quite the challenge to make sure that entire network is performing as well as it could. And it takes real money.
Act 89 brought some funding through the liquid fuels to the locals, and it's been helpful. But there's always a need for more.
Well, you were right that Act 89 was a help in terms of liquid fuel allocations. And as a result of Act 89, we're, as a Commonwealth, to municipal governments across the state, somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million a year. But considering the network that the local governments have, 65,000 or so thousand miles of roads, there's tremendous need there. And like so many things in government, that on a township level or on a state level, trying to strike that balance is really hard. We could do more, I'm sure, but that will have to come from somewhere. And you get very quickly into a complicated conversation about tax policy, especially transportation tax policy, that hopeful and eager to see additional help from our federal partners. The lack of support from Washington with respect to transportation forces the states, and Pennsylvania included, to assume more of that burden. And because the federal government has walked away from its responsibility in so many ways for the past 25 years, the Commonwealth and the other states have to assume more of the burden to maintain the interstate system. When we do that, there are less dollars available to be able to direct to liquid fuel allocation or to help with municipal transportation networks. So the inaction by Washington has a real effect on us, on our townships in this state.
It sure is, and we're waiting to see if there will be a next federal transportation bill. Do you think there is anything on the horizon there?
The federal transportation bill is going to have to be paid for somehow.
Sure.
And that's never easy. I know that when we were trying to round up the votes for Act 89, it seems to me, if I recall correctly, that PSATs and others were supportive because they knew of the need, and despite the fact that it was going to be an increase in the gasoline tax. The federal government will have that same complicated conversation. And, my experience is that when it comes to transportation, that the public will accept an additional fee if they know that there's going to be a direct benefit with respect to the roads and the bridges in their community.
Sure.
The public rightly gets concerned when there's a diversion of funds that are supposed to be for roads and bridges that go to other things.
Right.
And we should, and hopefully the federal government will find the will to raise the money necessary to direct it to the states, primarily to help with our interstate system, because that's real expensive. If the states were alleviated of some of that cost, then we would have the ability and hopefully the political will to direct more help to townships.
There's a lot of different discussions that are out there, but anything that you think is better than the other.
Well, there should always be an eye toward cost savings. We can't minimize the need to make sure that we're efficiently using our tax dollars, especially precious transportation dollars. So that should be an ongoing policy on every level of government, federal, state, and local. But when it comes to raising the money after you do the cost saving steps that could be available. Those steps alone are not going to be enough to solve the problem. They're just not going to be enough. My suspicion is that there'll be, at least in the short term, if the federal government advances a bill, probably some blend of gasoline and diesel taxes combined with tolling potentially of some of our interstates or bridges, and some other fees that might be available, at least to get us to a point in the future where some of these newer technologies with the vehicles that are so sophisticated that they drive themselves
Sure.
might lend themselves to. But we're probably more than a half dozen years away from that, in my opinion.
Sure. And as you know, Mr. Chairman, if we defer it and don't address it now, it gets more expensive down the road. So we appreciate your leadership on the issue. We look forward to working with you and your colleagues to come up with these solutions, and appreciate you taking some time to be with us today to talk about it.
Well, I'm happy to do it. And again, I really do value, and as a Commonwealth, we should value the input from our township supervisors and the folks that work in township buildings across the state. We think that we're important in Harrisburg, and of course, people in Washington think they're important, but the work that occurs in township buildings and borough buildings in the state is as important, if not more, because people's quality of life depends on the decisions that are made by those township supervisors. And I'm greatly appreciative of what they do for our community and for the citizens they serve.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all the time we have today. And remember, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe to PSAT's YouTube channel and follow our social media pages for more Township Video News content. Next Tuesday, look for Dave Talk. And as always, thanks for watching.